For the newly indoctrinated, Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files follows the story of a professional wizard in Chicago. We started our podcast as a way to help break down the series' most important moments, characters, and lore. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure at it by your own risk. Welcome to the McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 8.15, Court is Now in Session, where we are covering the novel Grave Peril. My name is Tansenn, and I'm joined by Maggie.
Hello, hello.
And Jess.
Hi.
Chapter 29. Court has begun and the guests receive their gifts from Bianca. Dresden is presented with a tombstone, along with threats to his life and his friends. Leah is presented with a gift, but has a surprise gift in kind, Amarachius. Bianca then presents the blade to Mavra, along with Lydia, which they plan to unmake the sword using the blood of an innocent. Dresden can no longer stand by and makes a stand. Vampire Court has just begun, and Dresden is experiencing very visceral fear at this point. He goes through this long description of the different types of fear.
Of flavors and textures and So, silvery fear, lightning, coppery, and that's what he felt. Horrible clutching tension that left a coppery-flavored blood on my tongue. Fear of the creatures in the darkness around me, my own weakness, the stolen power the nightmare had torn from me, and fear for those around me, the folks who didn't have the power I had, for Susan, for Michael, for all the young people, da-da-da-da-da. So, yeah.
Yeah, he's feeling out of control.
Like, well, crap. Yeah, so what little advantage they may or may not have had and first sort of coming in and mingling around and poking around and then wanting to get the hell out of Dodge, now they can't.
No.
So, and now they feel very much, I mean, again, I'm sure, just the way he says, Mavra quietly closes the doors, but with like an ominous boom, so it's like, we've all seen that part of the movie. Right, so you can just imagine however, the lights have suddenly gone down, everything's got quiet, the boom, like, you're locked in, right? Now you're just, like, quietly surrounded by all this, like, quietly mocking, laughing vampires, like, just the creep factor is just, right, playing on every
I think I'd be afraid, too.
But, yeah.
Oh, God.
Right, like everything both real and imagined. They're just like, let me just bring it all out here for you and just live up to every expectation you may or may not have ever had about.
I was gonna say, I came home yesterday and realized that I'd completely left the door open. And so I went and checked every room to be like, killer, killer, killer. Okay, good. Actively knowing you're in a room with a couple hundred vampires, like,
it's gotta be.
It's not like the fact that they like are starting to get afraid. Like, I have been dying. I would have been dying the second I walked into that room.
Yeah, like when you got there, right?
I'd have been shaking the whole time. There'd be no fear to build up. I'd be in max capacity.
Right? It's like there wouldn't have been any
get-go.
snarky comebacks. There would have just been like. Right? Well, I have to say, too, like, I just read a thing, and they're like, for all those people that, like, go ahead and, like, check behind the shower curtain for a killer, before, like, what are you gonna do when there is one? I sort of thought maybe that's where your story was going. And you're like, I check all these rooms, like, I'm not gonna do anything. If I walk in and there's a killer, and I'm dead, but I still walk into the room and check.
I would rather know while I'm on my feet than when I'm, like, laying on my back in bed.
I guess that's fair. Just meet it face to face instead of just having
exactly.
it. I'd rather jump out at it than it jump out at me. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so not in a good place.
Dresden grasps at reason to steal his nerves. He what he does is he goes through and examines all the facts thus far. Mm-hmm. So first when he figures out somebody's engineering the uprising of the dead, allowing the nightmare to come after him and Michael, and that it's likely Mavra. Mm-hmm. And that whoever's controlling the nightmare, either Mavra or Bianca, at any given time, was using the nightmare to take personal shots at Michael and Dresden. Mm-hmm. That it hasn't come after them at sundown as expected. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, the monsters were still playing by the hospitality rules. Mm-hmm.
Unless.
Yeah. And then Dresden suddenly realizes what the fuck is going on.
I hate it when I figure it out too late. Don't we all? But he has taken out So just before this too, when things are so he's got his sword cane. So he takes the sword out of the cane. So he's got his sword in the one hand and he flips around like the cane sheath. So he's got that as like his substitute blasting rod / staff, whichever it's supposed to be.
Oh, I didn't think he took it out yet. I thought he was just like clutching at it.
I thought he
because I think he does that later when he makes a stand.
He gripped the cane, but that's
this is still the cane. Oh, okay, sorry. This is just
But he just does.
He just brings it out again, right? He's like, I grip my cane with both hands, a sword cane, one of the Jack the Ripper England, not some knockoff. Okay, so I was thinking this is where he. Okay, no, you're right. Never mind.
Still just a cane.
Okay, so he's still just hanging. he's just hanging on to it for dear life at this point, just making him feel better. Like, okay, I have something. I have a stick in my hand.
But listen, here's the thing. Like, sure, a sword is a sword is a sword, but also a sword that fits inside of a cane is like a fencing sword.
Yeah.
You can still do damage, but like...
Yeah, it's not no Amaraki's.
Like,
it ain't no big-ass Crusader style
if you can
broadsword.
fit a blade within
anything that will
piece
pass
of
for
wood,
a cane.
I'm
There's
just
only
like,
so big it can be.
Yeah,
a cane's only going to be so large.
Yeah, like, you know.
I mean, he does enchant it, so...
Yeah, but
Still,
Dresden
not
doesn't do the bigger on the outside thing.
Yeah.
Stuff mostly. He doesn't really do a lot of dimension pockets here. No bag of holding, no. Hermione's purse.
Amber vault.
Fair enough.
Not yet, anyways. Yeah, so I mean, again, as opposed where a fencing sword is meant to be bendy and not, I mean, it's going to have some, but again, it's, like you say, only so big and thick this can be.
Which I suppose is better than nothing.
I mean, absolutely, right? It's better. Like I say, he's got something there, but I was going to say the other thing he points out, too, is that Bianca has, like, started up a speech while he's going this, so she gets up to address the audience, right. And this is when he starts sort of trying to calm himself down and go through the facts, and he's like, crap. And Dresden's like, shut up, Dresden. Like, you're making them look at us. And Michael's like, Harry? And he's like, the jig is up. He's like, I figured it out. And he's like, well, bully.
Well, he tries to sort of conceive of a way to get out of the courtyard, but they can't, because it is, as we said before, an insult to vampires. Mm-hmm. And they take retaliation immediately if they tried to, because of the insult.
That would be as good as throwing the first punch. It'd be the same.
They can't wait it out either, because that somebody is bound to try to do something to get them to fight.
And like, I started, again, maybe it's just because I'm reading it more broken up, like if I'd sort of started back at the beginning and read through to this point again. But again, this seemed to me a bit like, you know, how Jess, you were saying before with the whole, like, all of a sudden it was just Bianca. Like, you know, you're like, he suddenly, that's it. I'm like, because it feels like the facts he lays out that you just, Tansenn, you know, said to us, you know, he's like, someone's been engineering the uprising of the dead, the nightmare was out to get us,
etc.
surrounded by monsters. Oh my god. And then you jump to, like, Vlad Tepes with the whole, like, I'm like, how do you get that that's exactly what's happening here? Because I'm like, Mavra is supposedly an ally. Faravax is supposedly an ally. So sure, you don't like me and you don't like Thomas, but I mean, like, you know, obviously there's presumably other guests that we have not been introduced to one way or the, you know what I mean? But I'm like, so you've got a couple of people that are your allies and a couple of people that you don't like, and you're just going to take out every, like, I get it, but it almost seems like, I guess it's directed more towards, like, him and Thomas and things.
Yeah. It just seems like, well, I mean, to be fair enough, if she could get rid of Faravax and Mava right now, I'm sure she would, but that's a little bit, you know, and Leanne,
Lee is there in the whole...
Whatever, like, point is, though, is that, like, I find, like, the facts that he did just put together, like, he already knew them as well. Like, it's not like he learned enough at this party yet to have the whole, like, light bulb moment either. Like,
yeah,
he could have had that earlier in the
more
day,
just,
you know? Like,
yeah,
like there really wasn't enough that happened at
wasn't
this
sort of
party
anything new that he added to that
right?
line of reasoning right there yet.
It's like, it just took him to this point to think, like, yeah, he got the Mavra puzzle piece, but he even acknowledges in the thing, he's like, either Mavra's doing it or Mavra's teaching Bianca to do it. Either way, same results. Which, like, you already thought it was Bianca.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just not, like, he can't, like, he even says at the beginning of this party, and Michael's like, well, what if it's not Bianca? He's like, don't go there. Like, we're already, like, you know.
It has to be. I don't have anyone else to bring into
and he says, he's like, whether or not it's Mavra or Mavra teaching Bianca, same results either way. So it really, like, you could have come to this conclusion because you were already going off the assumption it was Bianca. So even if it wasn't Bianca, like, you've got a placeholder either way, you know? So
and
it's like...
Again, maybe this is like you've said before, that Harry always leaves, like, one clue out. You know, so I'm like, again, maybe he's done this little processing that we're not privy to yet that is making it click for him, but it's kind of like, again, usually at this point it feels like he's still, usually when because he'll be like, I then went out and ran an errand that I'm not going to tell you about, and you're like, okay, skip, right, and then so you know what part you're, right, but...
So far, the only thing he did off scene was go and buy a vampire costume.
Exactly. Right. So it's like, so this is the thing, right, where I'm just like, again, maybe it's because it's sort of, more broken up and I'm reading it in bits and pieces, but it felt a little bit like, I'm not following as long with you here. Like,
this one just seems
this
almost a bit jumpy.
Yeah, it's like we get this is a setup. Obviously, shit's going down. The way that you've laid it out is I don't know quite that I read it the same or would have come to the same or whatever. But basically, anyways.
Yeah, good reminder. He's doing all of this in a powder blue suit.
He's still drugged. He's still missing power. He's still scared out of his mind. I suppose the fact that he's got any reason at all is.
Fair enough, yeah. Maybe all this jumping to conclusions is just like, Buddy's really not operating. He's like, wait, does that make sense? Let's just go with it. I don't remember.
Right.
But,
so again, like they've been saying all along, it's like, we really need to get out of here. And it's like, well, we've been saying that almost since we got here. We just keep talking each other out of it for various reasons. But we all agree now that it's time to go. And so this is when Michael figures, so they're like, okay, well now, however they came to it, whether it makes sense or not, Harry's like, they're provoking us into something, like, if I just fucked off and not come, like they were kind of, they would have done their stuff and dealt with me somehow, somewhere later, whatever, but now that we did show up, they're gonna play the hand, they're gonna take their shot at me, like, that's no longer a maybe, that's a definitely, it's not an if, it's a when. Right, and so Michael's like, okay, crap, we're fucked. And they're like, we gotta get out of here. And then Michael's like, well, they blocked all the exits now. It's like, well,
I will say,
2-second window.
That this shows how unconfident they are. Because if they were confident that they could kill Leah and Thomas and whoever else
the vampires.
is an enemy in there, then they wouldn't have a problem making a move on Harry because there'd be no one to report that they'd broken the law. They could just lie. Yeah. So, like, this shows, like, they're not confident that, like, Leah won't get out and lab on them,
Yeah, and again, I mean, I don't think, like she's trying to move up the ranks here, but Bianca is still not anywhere near powerful enough to...
But still, if Faravax doesn't give a shit, and he's not going to blab because he's like, I literally don't give a fuck what you guys do. You're all way beneath me. Why would I report some random dude dying, right? Mm-hmm. And if Mavra's on team Bianca, then she's not going to report that Bianca broke the laws. But Leah, who can, she wins no matter what. If Leah can make it out of this, she might as well report that they broke the law because she'll get something out of it no matter what, right? Mm. So they must be confident that they can't offer Leah anything, or they can't take Leah, or they think they're going to try, but they might not be, or whatever, right? Or they think that they can't take Thomas or the White Court, or like for whatever reason, they're not confident 100% in their own abilities, because if they were, they'd just kill Harry, Susan, and Thomas and be like, no one's going to fucking blab on us. Because everyone here is Team Monster, right?
Yeah, I guess, to a point, but I think that is the thing, is that I think the laws that they're right is that they do have to be careful around them, because
I guess it could break Bianca's power.
Yeah,
if she doesn't hold up her bargain.
Yeah,
I suppose that she doesn't hold up her host.
I was going to say, I feel like there's sort of maybe more supernatural. I mean, again, it's a little bit hard to say because sometimes it seems like they're aware of everything, and sometimes it's like, well, shit's happening that you're not. I mean, like Thanos and the Eternals or whatever you were saying. It's like we were meant to stop all the deviants, and it's like, but he was a deviant, so how did he kill the world? And it was like, oh, oops, like
forget about it.
Yeah, maybe it's kind of one of those things that's like when it seems convenient, it's like they seem to find out, but when it's not, then they can, because. Yeah, I mean, again, I wasn't thinking it in those terms. I was thinking that mostly it's allies and things, and she definitely would be trying to take out Leah and that, but then, why they would care whether she took out Harry or not, but I feel like, there's probably a lot more bouncing down things and having to stick to the letter or rather than the spirit, and I sort of get what you're saying, but I don't know.
I understand the fear of Mab, but I also feel like, Mab's not, all-seeing, If she wants to see, she can.
But that's,
But it's not like omnipresent like God.
But I guess that's the thing, though, is that you never sort of know. How do you know when you're being watched or not, and where do you take the chances of...
I just feel like if I was in a room with all of my allies, I would feel
You'd
more
kill them all
confident.
anyways, just in case.
No.
That's what I keep feeling like that's what you're doing. She's like, well, she could just kill Farrah, she could just kill Mara, she could just kill Leon. I'm like, but she doesn't need to or want to.
If I was in a room where the majority of them were my allies, I would feel a lot more confident to kill my enemies and get away with it, right?
Yes, your best friend's not going to tattle on you, right?
Yeah, so it's like, that's why I feel like, there's a little bit of that, but if you think there's just like Mab's gonna be like,
I think part of it in Thomas,
your contract is all singed. What did you do?
yeah, I was gonna say I think part of it in Thomas's case is that she doesn't really. I mean, he's it'd kind of be like a two for a gimme, a BOGO. I don't know. She's like she wants to get rid of him. Like, yeah, it's kind of insulting that he's there and whatever. But Thomas isn't really, she doesn't need to kill
not really
Thomas or anything like that. She's just like, that was just rude that they sent you instead of your dad or whatever, right? So, I mean, like, the dad could be, Lord Wraith could be either an ally or an enemy, but Thomas is just kind of like, right? So I'm like, again, that's just more like, if shit just goes down the drain and he somehow ends up on the fringe of something happening, oops, oh well. Yeah. But really, other than that, Harry, seems to be the only one, like Harry and Michael seem to be the only ones that she would specifically... So I can see that way that, it's, I don't know.
Anyways,
whatever. It all goes, it's all a whole big whatever.
Bianca ends her speech and begins to acknowledge the guests, spotlights hitting each of them, and she begins giving her gifts.
Which is, honestly, this is one of, like, the most iconic moments in the entire series.
Yeah.
Bianca's gift giving. Like,
this would be a good cinematic.
This is one of the top tier moments from the entire series. Like, there's a couple up there, and this is just one of the absolute best.
So, yeah, they're still figuring out if they can, like, punch their way through and who they can hold off or not between Michael and Harry.
Yeah, they decide that a distraction is their best bet.
Yeah, and Michael's like, you're probably better at that. And,
He really ran out of time, though, before the spotlights sort of killed that momentum.
Well, yeah, because Michael's like, well, we can't leave all these other, and Harry's like, we can't grab everybody and go too. And Michael's like, but I can't, like, that's my oath and sworn duty and whatever, I can't just leave them. And so, yeah, I love they're having, like, this whole big, like, planning session, and, like, I will be honest, Bianca's just droning on and on with, I'm so fabulous, thank you for coming to my party where I got promoted to Grand Margarine or whatever the fuck, it's like, just like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, nobody listens to the speeches, not even at monster parties. So Harry figures she'll have a plan and a backup plan and a backup plan in case the backup plan doesn't work. So no matter what they do. So she finally, and she, I think, is it Faravax
Faravax gets a small cask.
Yeah, which we don't. Yeah, they don't.
Sparkly.
Yeah, so I was wondering if it's like gem. Like, do dragons hoard treasure in this lore as well?
I think it's. Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's just like, I think that's a pretty standard across the board dragon trait.
Here's a big giant gem.
But I'm thinking it's also got to be something like super mystical, magical as well. Because I'm like, there's no way he just got like a giant diamond or something. Like, here's the Pink Panther, and
I feel like it's got to come up later. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something.
Because it's well established. Every single person we meet at this party plays a major role in the series. It's everyone you meet in this book. Everyone who Harry meets at the party has a huge role
Kyle and Kelly
throughout the series. He doesn't meet them at the party.
I know.
But point is that it might not be soon, but at some point, every single person he met at this party makes a return, and they all have a huge role to play.
Well, obviously, they've only name dropped a couple of people, and they're all big people.
Yeah,
it's like the only dragon in existence just happens to be here.
So yeah,
okay.
And on top of that, the only gift that we don't know about is Faravax's gift. We know every single other gift that gets presented at this party, which is why...
We don't really know what
Leah
gets.
What we learn later on in the series.
Okay,
I'm saying,
we might learn later on what...
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, is that, like, with our knowledge we have now, is that it's coming, like, as we...
Yes.
I don't think it's just a throwaway gem, I think it'll be important to the series at some point.
Yeah, and I think definitely for anything to be worthwhile to Faravax would have to be, like, on a huge scale. Something about
so he gets something shiny.
Box. Very big brag box.
Quite
gleams
with
and shines, and yeah, especially in this age of poppers, it's fine. So
Thomas is called up next. Yeah. He asks Dresden to stand with Justine while he accepts his gift.
Mm-hmm. Which I get, but I'm like, weren't you already? You already asked if you could come over. So I'm like, I get that you are leaving now, but it almost seemed like a redundant sort of request. He's like, can we
stand closer?
Make sure they know that she's now with your part of the group now that I'm stepping away.
We get a bit of information from Justine at this point. It's she spills the beans.
Yeah.
She
Hello,
does
woman.
She does a little finagling, wheeling, dealing.
Doesn't waste a second to do it either.
No.
Second she gets next to Harry, she's like, all right, bitch, let's drop some lore.
Yeah. Yeah, she hates him. They all hate him. So
What?
yes. So
I
this
didn't
is
even say hi to you.
I know,
It's like, oh, what's like what like that scene in The Office when Dwight is just like standing there and then like I think it's Angela comes up behind him. He's like, Jesus, like,
yeah.
right? And it's just like Harry's just standing there and Justin's like, they all hate him. What the fuck?
Where'd you come from? Yeah, exactly. So this is where we get a little explanation here that we were talking about before that, yeah, they invited Lord Wraith from the White Court because he's who rules that section, and he couldn't be bothered to come. He sent his bastard son that he doesn't really like, and nobody takes seriously.
Of the court.
The lowest of the court. Like, nobody in court takes him seriously, and it's just kind of funny that she calls him like his bastard son. I'm like, aren't like all his kids like his bastard children? But apparently,
Literally.
Again, just in case, I guess we'll find out more about them all later. But yeah, whatever. But it says, oh yeah, Bianca wanted her because she's young and pretty and whatever, and Bianca wanted her because that's how Bianca rose to fame and power, was as the Madam of Chicago.
But Thomas got there first
and won't share, so Bianca's all pissy that he got the pretty first.
Yeah, Bianca holds a grudge, that one.
Yeah, and just for that, she calls him a poacher and stuff like that. So he's like, is that why you stay with him? Like, you feel it's your fault he has enemies because, all this from Bianca and stuff like that. And she's like, you wouldn't understand. So apparently she's got some other things going on. Harry tries to do the whole, she's like, he's a vampire. Like, you don't have to stay with your abusive boyfriend, even though he says he loves you. Like, you have options. You can leave. And she's like, no, you don't understand. Like, it's more than that. He's like, well, he's eating you. And she's like, no. He does, there's benefits to me that you wouldn't know about or understand, and that's not how it is.
Tells him that she doesn't need to be rescued.
She
it stands
looks
around on that one.
Right, kind of plays the metaphor, but it's like, no, that's not the deal. I'm fine. I want to be here. And he's like, okay. And she's like, but you can't do something for me, And he's like,
Can't rescue me, but you can rescue me and Thomas.
yeah. And he's like, what? And he's like, you showed up in a limo and you want to ride home with me? She's like, don't be quiet. Like, quit being a dickhead. Like, you know what I'm talking about.
He does eventually agree.
He does. Well,
She sort of tricks him into it, really.
She coerces him, blackmails him into it, yeah.
Basically, yeah. She's like, I know what you were talking about. And he's like, fuck, you're not human either? And she's like, I'm perfectly human. I just know how to read lips. Yeah. So I know that entire conversation you all just had about getting your asses out of here and trying to escape and getting away from whoever and whatever. So either you help us out and take us with you because she hates him, and she'll, again, just as much as this is an excuse to come down on you, if it happens, Thomas is just an extra bonus. She'll gladly, let him get trampled in the stampede. He's not the direct hit, but
win-win-win.
But win-win-win, right? So
Which is good. Like, this is a good win-win-win for Justine too, because either she can be the hero and tell Bianca about Harry's master plan, or Harry can save her. So either way, Justine's gonna come out
this is
on
her
top
point,
as well.
right? This is exactly. She's like, well, you can help me, otherwise I'll sell you out to Bianca.
Yeah. This
and
is
he's
like the
you
absolute
wouldn't dare.
worst
She's
game
like,
of poker. Like, Harry just showed up to a master's game where everyone's got 8 billion chips at their spot, and Harry's like,
yeah.
Whoa, he's supposed to bring money to this shit?
He's playing checkers and everyone else is playing chess.
Yeah.
And, yeah, exactly. So he's like, well, you couldn't do that. He's like, it's not my business. It's not my problem, And she's like, well, I'll rat you out. And he's like, are you threatening me? She's like, look, I don't want to. And I do get that. Like, again, I think he does a good job of, because it is a tricky situation. You could just be like, fuck you, you bitch. But Justine remains sympathetic to us. You're kind of like, yeah, Dresden, just help him out, right? So she's like, I will throw you under the bus if I have to, but that's not my first choice. I would much prefer to ally with you, and you guys work together, help us out, get out of here, all of us in one piece. She's like, but if not, looking out for number one, mine and Thomas's skin is priority, and if you won't help us, and I will do what I have to
help myself.
I will help myself, and I will make you the distraction so that we can get away or whatever if you need to. So he's like, oh my gosh. Right, because she's like, otherwise, because he's like, that's a lie. She's like, it's an exaggeration. But she's like, either, you help us out, or, she's like, she'll kill him on one of her pet horrors. Do you want to live with that? And he's like, oh, fuck. He's like, I wouldn't let that happen to you. And again, one of those, as soon as I said it, realized I said it out loud, and I realized it was true. And I'm like, oh, man. So yeah, then she's like, really? Oh, you really mean that, don't you? He's like, fuck me. So yeah, Justine does a good flipping back and forth between, the young, innocent ingenue and I will twist your fucking arms far behind your back because I have to.
She's got a decent concept of how to manipulate power.
So he's like, and again, he makes a joke, he's like, I'm gonna need like a receptionist to start keeping track. He's like, me and Michael and Susan and Thomas and Justine and fuck, like, just keeps.
Thomas does return from the dais and was given a condo in Hawaii with only one airline ticket for tonight and a suggestion to leave Chicago permanently.
A couple hours, like a one-way single ticket. He's like, oh, Justin's like, wasn't that nice of her? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Thomas is like, great.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he also
could have really used that in a couple of years.
Yeah, right. So he kind of takes Justine back or whatever, and then he knows, and he's like, okay, well, just stay close, and we'll get out of here. And Thomas is like, wait, what? He's like, Justine. Like, I just like, what? He's like, ugh. So yeah, so obviously, Justine had expressed some concerns beforehand or at some point during the party, and like, oh, hey, maybe we should, get this guy. And he was like, no, like, we're not gonna mix it up. Don't bring it into it.
Yeah, he does apologize for the imposition, but he does still thank him for
and he takes that moment to make
him.
He's like drops it for a second, is like, make sure it's genuine, right? He's like, I thank you. So.
Makes you really like the character of Thomas quite a bit more already.
Right?
It really sets him up nicely.
That reluctance. He's like, I don't want to be asking for help. I don't want to get in more than I need to. But, yeah, you know what? This is, I am kind of in a bad place here. So
no time for that, Thomas. We've got more gifts to give.
So she already did it. So let's just fine.
Yeah.
So, So that's all set up. So then,
Mr. Harry Dresden.
Yes.
Old and esteemed acquaintance and wizard of the White Council, please come forward so that I can give you something of what I've been longing to for so long. Again, that's subtle.
I do like the moment. Oh, Harry Dresden, I had looked forward to seeing you tonight. You are a very handsome man, after all, but you look utterly ridiculous. Nice little reminder that he's in that vampire outfit.
In that cheesy vampire costume. He's like, thanks. And then he just cuts right to it, right? She's like, oh, you look ridiculous. He's like, thanks. So how are you going to kill me?
Right? Straight to the point.
He's like, just at this point, why bother? And so, yes, we bring up Paula / Rachel. Again. So yeah, and I think Harry's got a fair, like, I'm sure Harry being Harry does carry some guilt over this to begin with, but she's like, oh, you remember Paula? And he's like, yeah, I remember you ate her. Well, no, basically she's like, she didn't live an hour, and he's like, yeah, I kind of figured. And he's like, that's not my fault, though. And she's like, yeah, it was because you and he's like, I didn't make you, like, that's your fault that you lost control and you ate your little pet human or whatever, right? And she's like, nope, it's totally on you. You came in and you upset me and you made me do it, kind of a thing, right? So it's like I say, I'm sure internally Harry does actually have guilt and remorse and regret and all of that for that evening, because if he hadn't shown up, but at the same time, I'm like, you do also have a very fair point that, her actions are not,
Yeah.
like, isn't that the big theme nowadays, that, people can't make you do anything, you choose how you react to your...
Yeah.
So it's like, he may have upset you. So yeah, he's like, it's not my fault if you lost control and ate her.
Learn
like,
some...
Oh, but it is your fault.
Learn some breathing exercises, Bianca.
Right. Calm down, count to.
Well, and she says some really interesting things after this point. Now I get to return the favor. I'm not someone you can simply walk over, slap around whenever you have a need. Not anymore. Like, that's... and then
So this is it, because she's like, I'm pretty sure she says somewhere in here, she's like, that I kind of have you to thank because you pushed my buttons, it drove me to rise higher, faster. Like, she was just kind of cruising along as a mid-level vamp with prestige and status in Chicago as this high madam with all the, pretty girls and living comfortably, and obviously had lots of nice little things to snack on here and there and people in high places to do favors for her. But yeah, that fueled her to be like, she was so pissed at him that she wanted more power directly to go after Dresden and take specific revenge on him. So she's like, you fueled the ambition a little there.
It sounds like she really sees him as an abuser in a way, like from her own sort of twisted point of view. I mean, he had knocked her off of that high horse. Like she thought
Well, and that's the thing.
she had all the cards, and he came in and just sort of took control.
So upset about that encounter, and I get, but it's like, you know, she's either unwilling or unable to recognize that Harry didn't set out to do any of that. Like, he literally just wanted some information about a girl that he knew worked for her. He had no intention of seeing beneath Bianca's mask. He wasn't there to try and, like, I mean, again, we explained some of that in that book, where she's like, you know, I just showed up, and she, you know, as far as she knew, I was the one that had been planning all this murder and had the... You know, so I mean, like, there's an ignorance on both levels, but it's like, once the thing is resolved and he's like, yeah, no, look, I just want to solve this murder case, and solves, and he, you know what I mean? Like, Bianca never seems to take that point to realize that he didn't specifically come and attack me and try to, you know what I mean?
I don't
like,
think that he ever goes to her and tries to explain.
No,
like,
well, no, but she, you know, once things wrap up and she sees how it plays out, Bianca could then, like, she might not have believed him at the time, but he goes away and never, like, he doesn't come back to bother Bianca anymore.
This is their second time
that.
ever speaking.
This is their second time ever. Yeah, it's like, once that murder case was solved and Sells was taken out as the person that killed, you'd think Bianca could have just been like, oh, fuck, he really wasn't out, you know, she could have, but she still hangs on to all that, and the fact that it happened, even though he didn't come to pick a fight with her at any point. He never wanted to do that, and she's just determined to, that's where it is and that's where it's going to stand. I'm going to take you down.
Well, he challenged her identity in a way, like, because she had this image of herself, like, and he came in and just...
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, though.
Totally
Like,
knocked that up.
She can't remove herself from any point of realizing that wasn't intended. You know, it's like, but you did it. So it's like,
She reminds me of Rudy in this way, in that it's like a bit of a sore loser. Like, a lot of these people, like Harry, Murphy, Kelly, Kyle, like a lot of these monsters and good guys, they're used to getting their ass kicked and they get up and then go to work the next day. But like Bianca or Rudy, they're just not used to, it's like, I'm a cop. Like, you can't
take it
I don't
personally.
fail, or I'm a vampire. Like, I can't, like, you know, where it's like they both just have a little bit of that, like, as soon as they, you know, are disrespected or they fail or they're not, you know, the top of their game, it's like, a fucking fuck you, Harry Dresden. Like, you've made a mockery of me and I hate you for life, you know?
Yeah, no,
it's like, you know,
exactly.
they really cannot handle that disrespect at all. And
well, again, yeah, I think that's sort of fair, that separation
failure,
between taking it personally and professionally, where, like you say, right, Murphy doesn't think that that mugger stole that purse specifically to get a chance to take a swing at Murphy. She's like, he's just a fucking mugger on any other, you know, whereas exactly Rudy and Bianca, they're like, you fucking purposely, I don't know how, but you must have masterminded the whole thing to get me there, and that this specific thing was, you know.
And actually, to be fair, Murphy kind of is that way in the first few books, where she thinks that everything Harry does seems to be a personal attack against her and cops and things like that. And it is as we go through the books where she gets a little bit more like, all right, there's a lot more going on than just me, you know? So it's
I guess,
but you get to watch her growth a little bit more, whereas like, yeah, like Bianca is just like, I mean, as we've seen, you know, I mean, she built basically this entire empire on hate for Harry Dresden.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and again, like,
she had a moderate one before, and now she's like, climbing the ranks.
Stormfront happens March 2000. Full Moon,
6 months later,
October
Halloween.
2000, and then Grave Peril, October 2001. Like, 18 or so months is a fast goddamn growth. Especially when, you know, you're in Chicago, which isn't, you know, little hick town with no monsters, you know, like, it, like, you know, Marcone has a whole fucking operation already set up here, you know, like, other monsters have a whole goddamn thing going on here, you know, like, Bianca is admittedly, she was already above a lot of them to begin with.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it wasn't like she went from the bottom.
But again, but it's not like,
but just fueled that next step.
Still, yeah, like, it's still, like, 18 months is, like, a fast time to really, like, you know,
to amass that much power that she did.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And again, and yeah, like we said, like, this is the second conversation she's ever had with Harry ever. He hasn't been thinking about her these last 18 months. He was dealing with the Shadow Man. He was dealing with the werewolves. As we know, he had all of those other
Kravos and whatever
the
cases.
Ghoul Goblin and the Welcome to the Jungle and the Kravos case and whatever else has come up in this time, right? Like, Buddy's been doing other shit, not thinking about it. And this whole time, Bianca's been, like, throwing darts at his picture for 8 months,
and obsessing
you know?
over one conversation that happened about somebody else, a year and a half ago. So, yeah, Bianca's kind of nuts. So she's
a little bit nuts.
Yeah, this is really
she can't let it go.
No,
but
and Harry's
she
just
does it with style.
But she does it with style, and it's like when she first starts talking to him too. She's like, she leans forward and he like glances down her flame dress, and there's, you know, and he's like, She leaned forward, giving me a glance down the flame dress. She was naked beneath. And she reminds me of that old joke. It's like, I'm looking at everybody, I'm like, oh, you like this outfit? I'm like, I'm not wearing anything underneath. You know, it's like,
right.
underneath my clothing, I'm completely naked. I'm like, okay, I guess you're pointing out that apparently she wasn't wearing like a bra or something with this dress, and there was no, but it's just so funny. I'm like, really? Underneath the dress she's wearing, she was naked? Thanks, Harry. That's, wow.
Under her flame dress was a flame bra and a flame panty.
Right.
What do you want?
And ruin that silhouette? No.
Yeah, right?
So Dresden does call her on that. She's like, that's a lie.
Yeah.
I didn't make you rope Mavra into working for you. I didn't make you order her to torture those poor ghosts, stir up the Never and Ever, and bring Kravos's pet demon back across and send after a bunch of innocents while you tried to get at me. Her smile. This was an interesting part for me. Her smile widened. Is that what you think happened? Oh my, Mr. Dresden. You have an unpleasant surprise awaiting you.
Mm-hmm. It's like, wait, what? No, that's what we figured out so far. What are you talking about?
Oh, so those 5 facts that we all just talked about didn't make sense, don't make sense?
Wait, we're still not there?
Yeah.
But Dresden said he had it all figured out. So he's getting pissed off. She's just toying with him and still like, oh, you think you figured it out? Nah, 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 nah.
I think we've dragged this out long enough. Let's get to his gift.
He's like, can we just get this over with? So she brings out, so they have these couple of, servants that come out with this big, heavy thing and plunk it down. And we discover that it is the non-capital tombstone.
A marble tombstone.
A marble, white marble.
Fancy.
Gold lettering.
Pentacle and gold at its center. Mm-hmm. Very thoughtful.
Oh, yeah.
She knows him so well.
Simple. She gets his taste, right? Nothing like elaborate or gaudy. Just Harry Dresden. He died doing the right thing.
Here lies Harry Dresden.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, here lies Harry Dresden. Above, and then the little pentacle, and then underneath, he died doing the right thing. And an envelope taped to it, which doesn't seem to have any purpose other than presumably that's the info.
The deed.
The deed to his plot. Yeah, exactly.
Comes complete with your own plot at Graceland. Near to dear little Inez.
Yes.
Who's Inez?
So, do you want this one?
Sure.
Okay.
Inez is a character we'll meet later on, but essentially she's like a famous ghost of Graceland. She's like a little girl that was buried there, and there's a marble statue of her. But it's been reported that the statue disappears and the little girl goes running around the graveyard at night. And so people have reported seeing a little girl running up and down the graves at Graceland. And people say it's Inez.
But the statue is missing from its display.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so it's this is an actual real.
No, it's a real. It's a famous gravestone at
a
Chicago
real
Graceland.
cemetery. Yeah, so I don't know if it matters. I don't know if you have to throw in that we meet her later or anything like that.
Yeah,
but
we'll meet her later.
Basically, but that is, Inez Clark, I think. I remember reading, because I remember looking it up the first time I thought somewhere there was dispute over whether she was a real person or not.
There is dispute over it, yeah.
But the statue, definitely. The statue and the plaque and whatever, like, that part is all real. That is part of the real Graceland Cemetery. That is part of, like, when people go and tour that cemetery, that is. Yeah, and I just find it cute where she says, your dear little Inez, because we haven't been introduced to her before. And, so I'm like, I don't know why, if there's some other off-screen connection that, I'm like, we haven't even seen Harry go to the cemetery except for like 2 chapters ago when he went to rescue Charity.
She doesn't say yours, she just says near to dear little Inez.
Oh, near to, I thought she just said
yours.
Near to your dear little Inez. Oh, okay, maybe I just...
Your own plot at Graceland, near to dear little Inez.
Oh, okay. Anyways, there is dates and names and everything all on the... So, yeah, I would have to look up again on whether... But yeah, she was only...
She was a small child. She was buried with her brother, and I'm pretty sure she died from, like, influenza, pneumonia, or something like that. I believe it was.
Yeah, well, it says beneath the statue there's a marker that identifies her as daughter of J.N. and M.C. Clark, born September 20th, 1873, died August 1st, 1880. So she wasn't quite 7. So, yeah, she in, like, another month, 2 months, she would have been, like, 7. So it's a little 6-year-old.
Which makes her perfect for ghost stories, because children are creepy.
Well, it's sad. It's always sad when a child dies. And then, yes, exactly. It's the extra creep factor of... So this is the lore behind...
But Inez has a happy ghost story. She just runs up and down the graves having fun.
Yeah, she just runs around
killing
playing.
anyone.
Yeah,
she's not luring other children into the graveyard,
Yeah.
Hers is just a little girl playing in Graceland.
Yeah, it's just sometimes the statue is there and sometimes it's not.
I will throw in this, actually, though. I've seen YouTube videos of people just trying to find Inez's gravestone, and it's actually quite difficult to find. So I think part of the rumor of, like, people not being able to see her statues, people are just getting confused about which is her plot and which is not.
Like, wait, wasn't there a statue here the last time we came? And oh my god, it's gone now. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that. It's supposed to be, like, a huge...
I've tried to Google Maps it and get to it, and, like, I found it, but it was a fuck ton of work. I wasted a lot of time, like, looking up, like, where's her plot and watching YouTube videos and scrolling through Google Maps and like...
You didn't then, like, drop a pin and, like, post a thing where you're like, here's where you can find... You did a great disservice to the internet. Now other people still have to go through all that work.
Fuck them.
Yeah, so we mentioned this before, like, when he went to the cemetery with Charity, that this is, like, a big famous thing, and Jessica's like, just start digging up all the bodies and put new people down. But it's got to be, like you say, a big thing that it's a very well established and pretty full. So for her to finagle a spot for Harry, you know what I mean? Like,
very expensive.
This isn't, like, on the outside of town. This is, like, in the middle of Chicago.
Really,
there's no room to expand.
So Bianca does remind Dresden she is bound by hospitality laws, but is still able to defend herself, and then passively threatens that her guests can also defend themselves as well. She goes on that it's not only Dresden is going to die, but the people he's with.
Well, you're right. That's when she says, she's like, I can stand by while my guests defend themselves, and if it gets hectic, and if somebody else, so again, right, like, you know, Thomas isn't her target, but if he manages to get trampled in it with him, then oops, and his horror in the night in the hole, and so yeah.
Yeah, she's pretty sure that he's going to die tonight. I'll have it delivered to Graceland, Mr. Dresden. They'll have a bed for you ready before sun rises.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, we'll see. And I love this. She's like, we'll see. How's that for a comeback? So yeah, so that's it. So she's got his tomb all set up. They have their little back and forth. He goes back. Harry's like, or Michael's like, what's going on? He's like, tell you in a second. Wants to pay attention because now Leah's going up. So Leah's given this gift, presented with a small black case. She opens it. Does it describe anything at all? No, we get to see nothing about it. Just like it's kind of like what Fairfax said. She's like, oh, a princely gift. And because she is fairy and they cannot accept a gift without giving it, you know, it all has to be balance of the scales. So she has to present something to Bianca as well. And lo and behold, it just so happens that it's Amaraki's. How fortunate was it for her to have just, I don't know what she was going to give her before last night. You know? Like,
She's going to give him Dresden.
well, Leah wants Dresden. She's not going to hand him over to Bianca. But it was like, yeah, I was like, I don't know what else you had, but this was way better and came just at the right time. So apparently whatever and again, it has to be like equal balance. So whatever she got was something pretty important and spectacular and supernaturally powerful, yada, yada, whatever, because Amaraki, as we know, is a big deal.
Well, and it sounded like she had plans from what she had said before, that when she picked up Amarakius, that was her goal, was to get that sword in a way. Maybe, that was one of her goals.
I was going to say contingency upon contingency upon contingency, but there was a lot of factors that...
But, like, was she influenced by Bianca to get the sword? Or does this happen to be happenstance? Like, it seems very planned out because of the next gift.
Yeah, I suppose maybe there could have been a thing where she's like, hey, he's your godson. He hangs around at the night. If you can get your hands on the sword, that'd be swell. I suppose there could have been some of that. I mean,
it's
again,
hard because Leah's so ambiguous.
And ambitious.
And that's
Yes.
the whole thing, right? Like, it could have been planned, it could not have been. I mean, I guess, like you say, so she gets that, that's it for them. Could have been, like, simply that the whole thing could have just been by killing the girl and having Michael / Harry come to the rescue anyways. This, again, is just kind of like icing on the cake, where they're like, we can do it with the sword and get rid of the sword at the same time, which has a tie between Mavra and... So, yeah, I could see it completely being happenstance, or I suppose there could have been some other threads further down the line that they were all along trying to transpire to get it there, but I don't know.
So Mavra is called after her, so she's called next.
Yeah, and so Bianca just turns around, and the sword she just got, she's like, here, this is my present to you. Just like, did y'all talk beforehand? It's like, what are you getting me? Like, oh, I'm totally going to re-gift that. Do you mind? Yeah. If you give that to me, I'm going to give it to her.
I didn't get anything for her.
Yeah.
So next, Lydia is brought out as well as the second part of her, or rather the original gift, I guess.
Yeah.
Or a second part if it was planned.
Whatever way this works, yeah. So they realize that exactly if she uses this sword to kill her, then that's going to destroy the power of the sword because it's a holy weapon.
Right. And Michael is just on this right away. As soon as he sees what's happening, he's like, "Oh fuck no!"
Yeah, I don't want to lose the sword. I don't want to, let this girl die. And Thomas is like, "Whatever, dude. Like, it's one sword. It's one girl. Like, against all of us. Like, you kick shit off."
Yeah, and it's not just losing the sword. Or it's not just the sword being lost from Michael. The sword will be lost for eternity. It'll lose all power if it's...
Yeah, like at this point, Michael's like, he can get it back and still, and maybe I'm not going to wield it anymore, but somebody... But yeah, they're talking about, like, destroying this, sword, right? Yeah. Like, exactly.
Which is when Harry has his whole come to Jesus moment when he's like, it was on my fucking gravestone. He died doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So here it all is. You know what? Harry is going to have to throw the first punch.
Yeah.
But he said as much. He's like, the longer we're here, the longer, or the more likely we're going to throw the first punch, right?
Yeah.
They'll come up with a good reason to get us to do it.
And this is the play that does it.
Yeah.
So
and he has that flash because, again, he's like, he doesn't want to throw himself into the wolves like that. And they're like, what are you going to do? And he's like, he's basically faltering and hesitating. And Michael's like, yeah, okay, no problem. I get you can't, but I have, right? And he goes to... make that first step, and that's where he's like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Because, Susan's like, well, what are you going to do? And,
so he can no longer stand idle. Dresden pulls his sword cane out, the sword out from his cane.
Is this where he...
Yeah. Michael stands next to him, and then Thomas decides to stand up with them on the other side. Harry, Susan asked. Her shaking hand touched my shoulder. What are we going to do? Stay behind me, Susan. I clench my teeth. Guess I'm going to do the right thing, even if it kills me, I thought, and all of you too. This concludes our episode 8.15. Court is now in session. Thank you for listening. You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnally's.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing. And please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling. Ponder by it at your own risk.